So a little over 2 years ago, I hit a wall. I had turned 40. Dave Goldberg, one of an inspiring mentor of mine, had passed away at age 48. I suffered a miscarriage that left me feeling empty and depleted. And I was really burned out by my rewarding but really intense executive job. I was experiencing a life down, like many of us experience. And like most of us, it wasn't my first down, nor will it be my last. But this motivated me to quit my job, to take a break, and to regroup. Unknowingly, I practiced one of the key principles of mindfulness. I took a moment to stop, breathe, and think. And like sometimes happens in life, it brings you exactly what you need. And a few months later, my co-founder, Jamie Price, came to me to become the CEO of the company she had created, which teaches the skills of mindfulness and emotional intelligence. And at that moment, I became a learner. Not just as a first-time CEO, but a learner myself in the skills of mindfulness. And through that, and the practice that I have learned, not only did it change my life, but it also allowed me to reflect back on past experiences and understand how I could have handled them better with the help of mindfulness. And it's from that vantage point that I want to share my experience of mindfulness with you and how it has helped me handle life's ups and downs. So I'm originally from France, and as a child, I lived in 9 countries and 5 continents. My dad was in the oil business, and we never stayed more than 18 months in one place. All our belongings basically fit in a couple of metal trunks, and we had to reset and recreate our life every time we moved to a new place. So obviously this was challenging to change friends and surroundings and languages every time and so often, but I loved it. And it really taught me to be comfortable with change. Through my life circumstances, I realized that everything around us changes all the time. And really we have little control over it. One of the principles of mindfulness is this idea of being with change without trying to resist it, but actually embrace it because it's a part of life. Every situation, good or bad, is bound to change, and being able to navigate that impermanence really helps build your resilience. I lost my father to cancer when I was 21. And at the time of his death, I did what I knew best at the time. I put up my armor, I got real tough, and I just plowed through. I didn't give myself any time to reflect. I didn't let myself grieve. I just thought I would be real strong and everything would be okay. Well, a year later, nothing was okay. The armor had cracked, the grief was still there alongside with a lot of unresolved issues about my father, and I fell into a depression. Thankfully, at the time, I was able to get help through therapy, which I'm a big supporter of. But now, with my mindfulness lens, I realized that I was lacking a critical tool at the time of my father's death. I was lacking the ability to acknowledge my feelings, to accept my sadness and my grief as part of my life. Instead, I tried to suppress those feelings. I tried to not pay attention to them, and they came running back to haunt me. Mindfulness is not about getting rid of negative thoughts. It's actually about accepting them for what they are in the moment, knowing that they will eventually pass. So I'm a bit of a workaholic, and that's an understatement, but my husband very often makes fun of me for my lack of hobby, to which I argue that work is my hobby, and I know it's a little sad, and I know that if I surfed and mountain bike and climbed like he does, I would be a lot cooler. But anyways, when I met him, I had a thriving career and not too much space really for anything else. And then I fell in love with 2 people, my husband and my stepson. And then a few years later with a 3rd person, my younger son, who's now 7. So at that point, I couldn't just focus on work. I had to make space for these 3 guys. And I have to be honest, it was a real adjustment for me. And it's still something I work on. I think the hardest part of it was feeling like I was downgrading to a B student in everything, always carrying a big load of guilt everywhere I went. Being mindful of those negative feelings and not dwelling on them, but instead focusing on self-forgiveness is a way that mindfulness can help you every day. As I have learned to be a working mom, I have had to give myself that slack. I have had to forgive myself. I've had to be okay with doing my best, even if my best sometimes falls short of the crazy standards we set for ourselves. So I don't win the best school mom award, contest, whatever, but I'm okay with that. So recently, my younger son decided that he would give a description of my husband and I. So he coined my husband the one who could fix anything, and he truly can. And I was summarized in 3 words: love, harmony, so far so good, and meanness. So obviously that word juxtaposed to the 2 others was really disturbing, and I was upset. So rest assured, my son is a happy kid. He's not, he's well treated. And those who know me well will tell you that I'm usually a pretty caring and reliable friend and someone who shows up. But I think what my son meant by meanness is a form of strictness that I have always had. I'm very direct, and while my intentions are not, my delivery can sometimes be perceived as abrupt or tough. Practicing kindness every day is probably the most transformative part of what I've learned with mindfulness and part of my mindfulness experience. It is hard to be kind, especially when you're feeling angry or tired or stressed or sad. Kindness is a choice you make when your first inclination is often to lash back. And don't get me wrong, being kind doesn't mean being a pushover. You can still speak your mind, but you do it in a kind way with a real appreciation for where the other person is coming from. Candidly, and I'm a little embarrassed to say that, this is hard for me and I have to work at it. But the more you make the choice of kindness, the more natural it becomes. And the more it creates a force field of goodness around you. And that simple self-awareness, that ability to take an extra moment to make sure that what you're saying comes from a place of kindness, those extra smiles you might give to strangers that maybe you kept for yourself before, they make all the difference. Not just for others, but actually even more so for yourself. So I tend to be a bit of a cynic, but I can tell you that kindness works. And you should try it. And then there's the over-revving of the engine. So stress has always been a driver for me, but it can be overwhelming at times. Being the CEO of a startup is probably the hardest thing I have done in my career yet. The weight of decision-making, the responsibilities, the workload, that can really take over my mind. And I've had to tackle new challenges like fundraising that have triggered real moments of doubt and angst. And, I've participated in, recently with Jamie, we participated in Apple's Planet of the Apps reality show. That was nerve-wracking. Being on the stage is stressful, but being able to breathe through those mini mind storms, being able to acknowledge the fear and anxiety that I have without dwelling on it and just letting it pass, those have been invaluable skills to help me through this journey of entrepreneurship. I can't tell you just how much taking a few deep breaths can help you manage a stressful moment, prepare for a big presentation, or manage a difficult conversation. The anchor of your breath will always keep you level. But it's not just about the tough times. Mindfulness also helps you be more present in the good moments. In fact, it helps you to notice them more. And it trains you to find joy in the small things. As I've practiced more, I've noticed that I pay more attention to the sounds, the smells, the tastes. I am more present physically in what I do. I will truly notice a beautiful cloud in the sky or the taste of a food I like. I don't do it all the time. I'm still very often in autopilot, but I'm getting better at it. And when I do, it really gives me intense satisfaction because I'm taking what the moment has to offer and I'm paying attention to it, and it fills my jar of good sensations. And that really helps in the days where nothing is going your way. So when we teach young children, we talk about sense superpowers, and we all have them. And when we use them, not only does it help us to focus, but it also helps us to make the world around us that much more vibrant. It's been really fun to share this mindfulness journey with my younger son. His favorite mindful activity is called Thank the Farmer, where you go through all the steps that have brought a raisin from the farm to your table and ultimately to your mouth. So we thank the worms that have aired out the soil, we thank nature that has nourished the vine, we thank the farmer who has collected the grapes, the driver who has brought them to the store, and ultimately, he thanks me for bringing him the raisin in the first place. Focusing your mindfulness practice on gratitude can really be a powerful way to counter the negativity of your everyday life. And in the same theme, another activity that he really likes is called Still I Feel Lucky. So recently, he dropped my iPad and was really upset because he had cracked the screen. But he was able to say that still he felt lucky because despite the cracked screen, he was able to see his show, and he was lucky that he had an iPad in the first place. Now, obviously, my son very much has first world problems, but you get my point. It's really easy to dwell on what went wrong, to think about what you don't have, but actually spending some time thinking about the good things in your life is really powerful. And I've also noticed that it helps with sleep. So it's been a game changer for me to think about the 3 things I'm grateful for every night before bed. So these are some of the things that I have learned on my mindfulness journey, and I'm still really at the beginning, and I so wish I had had some of these tools earlier in life, and that's the thing I want to share with you, the last thing I want to share with you. So when my partner Jamie created Stop, Breathe, and Think, it was initially to teach the skills of mindfulness and emotional intelligence to inner city teens. Since then, the app has reached a way broader audience than that and connected with a lot more people. But the core of our mission remains, and it really is more relevant than ever. In 1985, the Higher Education Research Institute at UCLA started asking incoming freshmen if they felt overwhelmed by what they had to do. So in 1985, 18% of them said they did. By 2010, that number had increased to 29%. Last year, that number surged to 41%. Think about that. So most of you in this room would report being more stressed and anxious than any generation before you. And when we conducted focus groups, when we developed our app for elementary school children, they all knew what stress was, and they were only 7 years old. So mindfulness and emotional intelligence are critical tools to help remediate the emotional health issues in everyone, but in particular in younger generations. These skills help build resilience, and they also help anyone navigate the ups and downs of life. I've seen it in my own life, and I witness it every day through the feedback of our users. And the power of these skills is that they are teachable. Anyone can acquire them through short, consistent practice, a few minutes every day consistently. I learned that when I was 40. Imagine how much more it could have helped me had I learned it 20 years ago. Imagine how natural it's going to be for kids like my son, who will start practicing when they're in elementary school. A habit is that much easier to acquire the earlier you start practicing it. And that's why I have so much hope by giving you, the younger generations, fun, easy, and accessible ways to learn the skills of mindfulness and emotional intelligence. We can arm you with the ability to really tackle anything that comes your way. And that we can help you develop at a young age the skills of kindness, gratitude, and compassion that make for a more positive and peaceful world. Thank you.